Hey there, good evening. Tonight we're going to be looking at a film, because this is movie night, a film called Critical Thinking. How's it going, Ruben?
I'm good. Thank you.
Great. You know what? This film was a 2020 film during the whole pandemic period. And as I was reading up on it, this film, it took years for them to make it because this takes place in 1998 in a high school in Florida. It's called Miami-Jackson High. And this film is directed by John Leguizamo. He's also the star of the film. His name is Mario Martinez. Michael K. Williams is also in the film. He's from one of my favorite shows called The Wire. He plays Mr. Roundtree. That's Cedric's father. Cedric is played by Corbin Tuggles. And the principal, Kesto, is played by Rachel Bay Jones. And another of the young men portrayed in the film, Ito, is played by George David Lendenberg Jr. So this film, Ruben, takes place in 1998. And it's a bunch of 4 or 5 young men. Actually, starts off with 4 young men, and then 5 is added later. And it takes place in a elective classroom where students are learning about how to play chess. And they're always inviting young people to come in to take the class. But these are troubled youth. When I say troubled, they're involved in gangs a little bit. They're involved with selling drugs. Actually, not so much gangs, but I think they're around it. But pretty much the drug scene is happening, and you can tell they come from tough backgrounds. Latino, African-American communities, poor. And so what's happening here is this teacher takes these 5 young men and takes them to these tournaments, and they start winning, and they go to a regional and then state and then national, and you kind of follow their story, and they really focus on 2 young men, the character of Ito and Cedric. The other 2 young men, well, like I said, there's a third one comes in later on. That makes a 5th. Not so much time there, but as the film goes on, you see their home lives, you see their struggles in the classroom. Meaning, one of them works nights. When I say trouble in the classroom, he's not going to school all the time because he's working evenings. Another young man Cedric is having trouble with his father. His father's a single father. That's played by, like I said, Michael K. Williams, who's great. But as the movie goes on, I feel like things were not developed too much regarding the father of Cedric. Like I said, played by Michael K. Williams. I don't know what happens there in that story. I was interested. What was the ending? They brought him up, but I don't know what happened after. That goes with all the characters, really. It felt like it ended abruptly. It felt more like a TV movie, so I can't really recommend it, even though I like the idea of the story, even though I like the characters, even though I love John Leguizamo. He's the director, but I felt like they just kind of maybe ran out of money. I don't know, but I didn't like how it ended. Just kind of ended really too quickly for me. But I want you to, at this time, Ruben, now tell me what you think.
Wow, I think we have a first. I actually liked the film.
What?
I did. And it's very interesting because you mentioned in our review of Freedom Writers that you related to the students and your time with Saya.
Yeah.
With that film. To me, it left me cold. In this film, I related to the students. The students were real. Well, before I get into this, I will say one of the reasons I like it so much is who you just mentioned, John Leguizamo. He does not get the credit he deserves. He is a top-rate actor, and he directs this, and I like how he doesn't pay attention. Well, he does pay attention to how he looks in the sense that he looks like you and I look after a long year of work, like a slob and ruffled and everything else. And I like the details he brings to his performance. It's a very special performance. He's always good. The actors were good. So you're mentioning the ending that it didn't hit hard enough for you, or it didn't resolve itself for you. But for me, I can forgive the ending because the ending was very unusual. At least if as the credits go up. So that's very interesting to see these actual characters talk and being interviewed. It ends the way you think it's going to end in terms of the one
No
cliche is,
surprise. Yeah.
so I will say this.
No surprise.
There was a cliche. They have the ringer come in, um, the chess ringer, but there's always a ringer. Hoosiers, they have the Jimmy
Yeah.
Kid, sullen,
You need that one
quiet, but
kid. Yeah.
he could beat everybody. That whole thing. But it might be true to the story. I don't know. Um, One of the things that threw me in the beginning was there was a shocking scene of violence in the beginning of the maybe the first 20 minutes of the film
Oh, yeah.
that seemed very random, and it threw me out for a moment. But then I started thinking about it and realized, well, that's violence. It's random. It comes and you didn't expect it, and somebody gets killed and taken out, and you didn't expect it. Okay, and we're moving on, and there's a sense of moving on. I mean, not that John Leguizamo accepted it as great.
Right.
He did it like, hey, let's move on.
Kind of reminds you of our Seiya days a little bit.
You have to keep teaching. He was
Yeah.
grieving, but you got to keep pushing, and that's why I related to this. And I'm going to jump into the authenticity because it's related to why another reason why I really liked it is the students' performances. So these kids, these actors felt very authentic. There's a scene where they go to this tournament, to a hotel. One of the kids comes out of the pool completely naked, and everybody is cringing, and they go, "Oh, what are you doing?" And it reminded me how unpredictable students are.
Yeah.
This is how I felt when I was in a classroom working with students who are underserved to the point where they might not have models on how to behave. They haven't been to hotels before. They haven't been out of the state before. This felt real. It's one of those films where I felt like, man, John Leguizamo has an insight into students' lives in some way, or maybe he just figured it out. But I like that authentic point. I want to bring up. I'm going to be quiet right now. I do want to bring out some of his teaching strategies because they were very good. But what were you going to say?
Well, yeah, I mean the authentic piece. No, I again, I mean, I love the story. I mean, I love what this story was about. I just didn't like the way it was directed. I liked the acting. I just felt like it was cut crazy. Even the scene when you're sharing about the shooting. Oh, I think I'm blowing in the scene a little bit, but the violent scene. It just, yes, I understand how people reacted to it, the students, and then even the teacher, John Leguizamo. But I just felt like I'm like, what went on here? I just felt like they didn't really spend enough time there. And then, of course, at the end, like I said, I just felt like the development of the characters had stopped. But that's me. But I will say this: we're gonna say something.
I was going to say there was an open end at the end. At the end of the film, there was a character that they didn't resolve.
Right.
Maybe.
Sort of. I guess you're right. There is a little.
So I agree with you on that. On that point. However,
well, even the Michael K. Williams, the father. I mean, I'm thinking. I mean, I don't see a full arc there. I feel like he was the same person. I mean, there was no growth there between the father and son. And I was thinking that they were going to show that, but maybe it didn't happen. So it was real to that's what really happened.
I have to say, okay, the two points you bring out, the shooting and the Michael K. Williams. I didn't like the Michael K. The shooting either because it felt so random.
Right. It did.
Out of the blue, and then
I wasn't ready for it.
But I had the same feeling when one of the students I taught was shot and killed, where it's like he was here just yesterday. I don't understand who did
Your
it.
mind can't comprehend it. Yeah.
Why? And I found myself doing that after that scene, and I walked away. 10 minutes later, I thought, "Son of a gun, they did it." Now let's go to the Michael K. Williams character. What you said. Phenomenal actor. I'm a fan of The Wire, as you are. I will say I did not. Okay, it's the same thing with the shooting.
Right.
I did not dramatically appreciate how the boy. I don't want to. He leaves and then he comes back like nothing happened. Right. That's and there was no the loose end was never tied.
Right. Or that was one of the loose ends, but that's one big one.
That's a big one. He just came back in like nothing. He was on the street because his father was so brutal to him. And then I thought, wait a minute. there is no structure here. There is no structure to this. Kind of like how some of these students come in and out of their parents' house, get kicked out, and then will walk in 3 days later, and the father just looks at him and keeps drinking. So um, I know people might watch this and say, oh, so really it was the director's choice? Even if it wasn't, I think it was, but even if it wasn't, I drew from it that it was, and that it was impactful to me.
Well, you make a good argument. I still felt weird about it. Maybe it's because I was expecting something and didn't happen, but maybe it wasn't supposed to happen that way, like you shared. But let's go to authenticity.
Yes.
I love the part where they're traveling in the station wagon. I think it's a station wagon, and they put everything, all the clothes, and they're scrunched up. I remember I coach softball, decathlon, and there are times where I'm like, where am I going to fit this one kid? And there's things you get a little creative, and you see that you see that in the film, and that was authentic. But what I liked is the way he communicated, not only doing that with them after school, taking them places to tournaments. So he was with them. I mean, he was one of them. But Martinez, the teacher,
Leguizamo, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I love in classroom, he would always share poetry or some lines of a poet or a piece of artwork. And there's one time, maybe he's thinking nobody's listening to him, or he'd say to me. But later on, when the kids goes, oh yeah, I hear you. We hear you. So it's like when you don't think their kids are listening, but they are listening. That was really cool. And I think teachers do that, and they're hoping students will be listening. And it feels good when you hear them say, oh yeah, I heard you say that. Or they'll tell you later, like, oh yeah, I heard that. Like, oh, you heard that?
Yeah. And I think it was just a momentary point where he might forget that they were listening, because he knew that there were some that were, and it's related to a strategy or a way of teaching that I really appreciated about this guy. So he has a group of students who are especially in tune with chess.
Yeah.
And I love the title of the name of the class, Critical Thinking. And they play chess. And he has these 4 or 5 rock stars in there that are especially connecting. But he will go to this kid and say, what are your thoughts? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Mary? And he wasn't ignoring. He kept bringing the students who were intimidated or maybe not involved or just some way disassociated from it. There's a moment when one girl responds, I don't know, bro. Stop asking me. Completely disrespectful. And I like how she wasn't over the top. She didn't just say, one of these other movies, she'll go over the top, but she said, I don't know, bro. Why don't you stop asking me? And his response to her disrespectful response was totally respectful. And he moved on. And that's really hard to do sometimes. Your ego gets in the way. You want to bring a show of force. Another thing he did was he taught a concept briefly about a guy from New Orleans, a chess player from New Orleans versus another chess player from Austria. And they had pitting philosophies of chess. It was a 5-minute lesson maybe, but when he taught the lesson from the New Orleans guy, he put on a white wig and gave a New Orleans accent. And then the Austrian guy, different wig, a beard, and gave an Austrian accent. And it was very quick though, but he knows that details matter and students remember that, and the concepts become more cemented as well. Really appreciate those details.
I think I also like the idea that he, the administrator that was over him, the principal, you could tell that he's always fighting for the kids, but she cared about him too. And I think he would kind of fight, like, I'm fighting this war, and I'm trying to, get these kids money to go to these trips. And she's like saying, I'm on your side, buddy. I'm working on it too. And I like that they didn't really demonize her. She really was, and she got them, connected them with even flights for the national championship, right? And so I like that because that was real. Even selling candy. You know what? I've had to sell candy so many times. And she was kind of saying, you know what? Yeah, it would be great for us to give you a check, but we just can't do that right now. Here's some candy and sell it. And that, I think that was real. I've had that happen to me before where they're like, hey, you got to sell candy if you wanted to get uniforms for your
Oh,
kids or whatever.
there was an arc to her though. In the beginning, we get a sense that she didn't care about the kids. She just cared about butts, and she said butts in the seats. Put
Yeah.
butts in the seats. But midway, she
Yeah.
started indicating that she did care, and she pushed the chocolates because they couldn't afford it, but she wanted the students
Yeah.
involved.
I think it wasn't so much that
The
she didn't care.
championship.
I think it was that she understood that that class was an elective and that's just an elective class. But then when he was taking it to the next level, because later on she tells him, you're a good teacher. She sees that this is a serious class. These kids are doing some fun, some interesting things, and they're doing things that are getting the school recognized. So I think you're right, though. I mean, it was more of an arc in the beginning. Not that she didn't care. It's just that I just thought she didn't even understand exactly what was going on in that room. Like you said, that title, critical thinking, is perfect because it's saying we're not just about chess here. You know, we're doing more things here.
Yeah, it also makes a real good sales point, I guess, to get involved in clubs or
For sure.
just other things extracurricular, because you get to know students on a different level if you do that. And I really liked it. And we disagree, but
So first, it is
maybe
first.
maybe
Let's put
the
that in the
viewers will
calendar.
leave. Maybe viewers will leave their ideas of what they thought about critical thinking.
For sure. Yes, thank you. Okay, you guys all have a great night, and we will see you soon. All right, bye.